Facebook momentan 500 Millionen Menschen. This is a confirmed number, Joanna. 500 million people are in the Facebook network. Wer von Ihnen ist dabei bei Facebook? Joanna, they are all yours. All supporters, all friends, all fans of you. So, very welcome, Joanna. Before you enter the stage, she's Vice President of EMEA, wie das immer so schön heißt, also Europe, Middle East and Africa. Die Amerikaner fassen uns da so gern zusammen. Für uns territorial ein bisschen schwer nachzuvollziehen, aber so ist es nun mal. Wir wollen aber, bevor wir Joanna Shields folgen werden, mal hineingehen in die Welt von Facebook mit diesem kleinen Film. Please welcome Joanna Shields, Facebook.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Great. The music was a bit wonky, sorry about that. I think we had two versions playing behind. But hopefully you got the sentiments and you know, what we're trying to convey today. Thanks again very much for inviting me to be here. It's almost humbling for someone like me, a techie, to be, you know, amongst the best marketers in Europe. And I always count myself lucky to be involved in technology in an industry like this, where I can interact with creative people and pretend to be one of you. Okay, so what you saw in the last bit of that movie is what we say, welcome to the social graph. The social graph is what actually powers Facebook. It's the web of relationships, people's friends, their family, the things they care about, all weave together. But what I'm here to talk to you about today is not the social graph from a technology platform, or how hard it has been to build it, or how we scale it for 500 million users, which is normally what people like me talk about. But what I'm here to talk about you today is how this social graph is going to become the most powerful marketing tool ever invented. It took Facebook 4 years to get to 100 million users. Just earlier this year, it took us 4 months to add another 100 million users. So we're talking now about what sociologists call an inflection point. It's a point where, you know, the previous history of something is no longer a predictor of the future. And we've got a situation now where there are 500 million people on the site, and they experience 700 billion hours of content on Facebook every month. And at the same time, they're sharing 30 billion different pieces of media. That would be photos, you know, videos, anything that means something in their personal life. And they're sharing that every day to the tune of 30 billion per month. And I think what another point that's quite interesting and quite staggering is if you take those 500 million users and you put them all into one country, you get to the third largest country in the world, which is really profound, and again goes back to the point that, you know, we're experiencing something. We're at a point in time where, you know, the past is not a predictor of the future. Now, I've been lucky enough to be in technology for 25 years. I know it's quite shocking. My boss is 26 years old. They get younger and younger with that speech company I joined. And I have the dubious distinction of becoming 50 before he becomes 30. So, anyway, but I think part of that experience is over the past 15 years, I've seen the internet from the very beginning. I was lucky enough to be one of the first people to run an internet startup. I sold it to Philips back in 1999. And then I went to Real Networks, and I was part of a company that brought the internet voice and video. I mean, how exciting is that? And then by luck, somehow I found myself at Google when search became the dominant buzzword of the time. And I was at Google and one of the managing directors, and I watched that whole end of the decade where Google became a dominant force in the industry. But what I'm going to say here to you here today is that whilst I think that the last decade was about search, and that was a profound decade, and search remains extremely important and vital, and innovations like you've just seen last week with Google Instant continue to change and transform how we search for information. I'm going to put a stake in the ground and say that this decade is going to be about social. And the social web really is fundamentally changing the way we interact with each other, and in the process presenting us with important opportunities for advertisers and marketers. And I think in this case, the most important opportunities since the invention of television. I think we're at a critical moment in time. Like if you look back, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to see that this era was one when digital stopped being about technology and websites, and where we stopped talking about algorithms and scaling, and we started thinking about technology and how it changes human behavior. The technology, the algorithms, the hardware, the software are all becoming less important, because what's happening is everyday people like you and me, our friends, our families, are joining Facebook. And they're there representing the true identity, who they are. Used to be on the web we would use code names and made-up names and avatars and programs and various other things. This site is unique in the sense it's about real people. It's connecting with your real friends and your real identity. And I think it makes it an incredibly authentic and personal place. It's a place where people share their hopes and dreams, their desires and fantasies, all from the mundane to the magnificent. And often, I think, in life, we don't see things clearly until somebody really close to us gets involved in what we do. In that case, it was my father. He's, you can't see him here. Hi, Dad. He's 74 years old. He's a retired industrial guy, metallurgist, living in a remote part of central Pennsylvania. And what was fascinating about my father, and I think a lot of people these days, because our demographic is evolving and changing, is that on a daily basis, he uses Facebook to connect with his friends. They go to news sites, they make it a game between themselves and commenting on news commentary on shows like CNN and various other things. And they share stories, they update their friends on what's going on, and they talk about what they're passionate about. Like my father's passionate about politics. So you see here, he's having an argument with my sister-in-law's mother. Anyway, you get the idea. But what's fascinating here is it's not just young people anymore. There was recently a Pew Research study that confirmed that my dad is not alone. Social networking has doubled among the baby boomer generation. That's the 50 to 65-year-olds. And it's up to 25% of the people over 65 who have an internet connection use social networking. And I think that's really a profound change. It's no longer just about kids anymore. It's about everybody. And it's safe to say that the 500 million users we have are the most engaged audience ever assembled. What's striking to me isn't how many people use Facebook, but how much Facebook's become of their daily experience, their daily lives. How many in here have an iPhone or an Android phone? I suspect everybody here. I actually have 2 in my bag. There's a story behind that. Well, they're not really phones anymore, are they? They're really more like extensions of ourselves. 5 years ago, when you would... I hate when I have to run the presentation because I always forget to click the slides. When you're in charge of everything, it's a little bit too much up here. Anyway, voila. Where was I? 5 years ago when you took your phone out, right? It was all about, I can't miss that important phone call, or I need my phone in case, the car breaks down or somehow I get stranded. So those were the 2 primary things you worried about. Well, today, it's like you're going to miss something. If you leave the house without your phone, you're not connected to your friends, you don't know what's going on, you're not getting status updates, you're not in the know, and it becomes almost an uncomfortable sense. And as you might have heard, we recently launched something in the US called Places. There's a big fervor now about location-based services and geolocation games and fun things on the web. And what Facebook Places is an extension of that experience. So you can take your friends wherever you are. If you're running your cart down the supermarket and you want to ask somebody, if I'm making you know, some kind of, I don't know, penne aberrata or whatever. I need to know, is this the right one or that the right one? And you can have that conversation while you're in the supermarket, and this is very exciting. I had an experience. I was in the U.S. when we launched the Places product, and I went that evening to a sushi restaurant, and this came to me, you know, quite suddenly. I'm not the kind of person who uses Foursquare or Gowalla. I'm not that much of a power user. But this is quite useful. I checked into this Jinshu Japanese restaurant with my boss, and several other people decided within instance to comment. So the first thing I knew when I checked in is I knew that my boss and his wife had been there earlier, Mark Zuckerberg, and his girlfriend, excuse me, had been there earlier, and they told us what they liked on the menu. It was written in the Facebook profile, so I could go back to the history and find out what they liked in the menu of that restaurant. And then I had a couple friends say, "You're in town, why haven't you called me?" And then another few that said, "You know, you found the best sushi restaurant on the peninsula." So I had this incredibly rich experience while I was sitting in there reviewing the menu. So it was really quite profound, the changes and things that it offers you. And this is a product that we rolled out in Japan this week, and you'll soon to see it in Europe as well. And so much of who we are, our memories, our friendships, our past, our present, our future, so much of it's now digitized, living somewhere in the cloud, that we need to re-examine how the technology is impacting human behavior and how it interacts with the world around us. And a keen understanding of human behavior is probably the best common denominator of everybody in this room. We're not social scientists here, but we're all marketers. And we're good at what we do because we understand what people desire, and we understand how to make them desire what we offer them. And that's what I'd like to explore with you today. So if we're in the business of understanding human desires and needs, how is it that we seem to be focused on one-off campaigns? Forgive me, but I think marketing has been almost like a one-night stand. It's the kind of thing whereby, you know, you get a burst of budget, you push out a message, and then that's the end of it for that quarter. It drops off. On Facebook, you have this opportunity to have this ongoing conversation, to be in a constant connection, and to spread, you know, almost a mini message, but to keep in touch with people on a regular basis. And that's really changing how brands interact. And a little bit later, I'm going to show you some very, very successful campaigns on Facebook and how people are really utilizing this and transforming marketing from that one-night stand to something that's a long-term relationship. And we're starting to see the benefits of that in terms of recall of message, brand positive favor of a particular brand, etc. So I think it's true that we as marketers have done a good job at using the tools at hand. There's some really powerful campaigns that, just doing a little research for this speech that I ran across. This one is the Service Plans campaign, or sorry, this is RSCG's campaign to fight homelessness with the 50/50 magazine and what that means, and just bringing awareness to this very profound problem. So we're able to, on television, really conjure up the emotion and the interest of the viewer. There was also another campaign that struck me recently. It's Amnesty International. This is something that's been, it's been really profound to talk about human trafficking and how difficult a problem it is, and to show really, you know, the pain and the suffering of people in that circumstance. So I think the internet, as well as TV, has been good at sort of triggering emotions. But the one thing that's been elusive for us so far, you know, really way back since the first billboards appeared, has been the capacity to create familiarity. The ability to know our customers so well that we kind of know them better than they know themselves. Brands have always tried to put people at the center of brand marketing. They've called it different things, from customer-centric marketing to people marketing. But whatever it's called, it's incredibly hard to scale. And despite all of our creativity and our ingenuity, and yes, our advanced technologies, we haven't been able to develop real, scalable, long-lasting relationships between brands and customers until now. So what I'm talking about is getting to know them and then getting to know us. It's like you're almost living in a small town. At Facebook, we believe in this hometown experience, where the people you care about most are always nearby. We believe that by putting people, not computers, at the center of the web, we can make it more social, personalized, and authentic. I mentioned earlier now that we have 5 million users using our site. Each day, 15 million people become friends on Facebook. Pages on Facebook generate more than 50 million likes. Those are staggering figures for any company, but I think we should focus on what's behind this phenomenon. We are witnessing a fundamental shift in how humans interact with each other and how they interact with the world that we live in. The almost 2 billion people that are now online represent a collective force of untapped creativity and capacity for communication. For the first time in human history, all prior revolutions from print, radio, film, and broadcast TV are available through one medium. A medium which enables us to tell stories and share them with everyone in the world instantly. This is probably the reason why a recent report from Forrester said that almost half of the teenagers in Europe are watching television using their laptops. When a Facebook user is moved by a story he or she has read or a video that he or she has watched, and the brand that they've interacted with, all it takes is for them is one click to share that with their world. Which is why I believe the most important word in the internet today isn't search anymore, but it's share. When we search for something, that's usually the end of the story. But when we share something, we're at the beginning of a story and the beginning of a conversation. And whatever a brand starts that conversation or joins that conversation, its ability to be relevant to consumers is significantly higher than ever before. Underscoring this point is the fact that some of the world's largest brands, their main point of digital contact with their consumers is now Facebook. At many of these, it's become intentional. They realize that Facebook has become the most important relationship marketing channel, and it makes a lot more sense to go where consumers are spending their time and having most of their conversations. Many sites, including CocaCola and Starbucks, are over the 10 million mark in terms of fans. This is profound when you think about the things that we talk about as an industry. I mentioned earlier Foursquare and Gowalla. I think they're somewhere in the neighborhood, I think the biggest one is 2 to 3 million people. Well, you've got a situation where there are multiple brands on Facebook that have 10 million people themselves. Imagine mobilizing that power, using Facebook Places, and pulling your message and your community through the community and out to the world. It's just an extraordinary opportunity. Which is why it's also important that Facebook share the users with the world. So last spring, we launched something called social plugins, and we gave sites the ability to bring Facebook and to bring that conversation to their sites. What happened was profound. But what's also really important is by bringing Facebook to the world, we're able to understand more what our users want. We understand that they like certain types of things. They like this sporting team. They're a fan of a particular brand, and we start to understand them better, which helps us work with you as marketers and agencies and big brands to really find and refine your message and find your audience on Facebook. Speaking of igniting conversations, the last time we saw such a large-scale phenomenon, I keep missing these slides, guys. I'm really sorry. I was just buzzing right along here. Okay. The last time we saw such an incredible phenomenon was when TV became mainstream. Before that, many brands are still confused about what social is, and they're missing the fact that when it comes to social media, the important word is social, not media. Simply having a presence on Facebook isn't enough. Talking, discovering, and building relationships is what we're all about. It's the intention that counts, and what we do as guardians of these brands is to connect with the consumer, communicate with them, and help them share their stories with each other, and ignite a conversation that culminates in many years of loyalty and hand-holding. This is a point reiterating. When someone becomes a fan of your brand, and they become your ambassador, and when they become your ambassador, they will spread the word on your behalf. Never in history of advertising have we been able to scale a consumer's love of a brand in such a way. When I was a kid, I liked watching television. Again, I've given away my age, so you know I grew up in the 60s. So I don't know if it's come yet to Germany, but there's a very popular show. It's an Emmy award-winning drama in the US. It's a top-rated show in the UK called Mad Men. And I think it's important to bring that up now, because the key character in that is a guy named Don Draper. And Don has a saying, and the saying is that fear stimulates the imagination. And I think it's really an apt saying for today. The pace of innovation is so rapid that it's often hard to understand what's going on and where things will lead. And it's exactly at times like these that we can't afford to sit and wait, nor can we afford to leave our clients dazed and confused. At times like these, we need to get back to basics and do what we do best, connect with the audience, share stories with them, and ignite their imagination. What I'd like to do now is take a look at a few examples. Adidas, which was a big World Cup sponsor, has done a lot of work on Facebook. In fact, they're one of the top 20 brands on the site. When they wanted to reignite the Adidas Originals brand, they decided to work with Facebook to bring this campaign to life. Originals brings to life some of Adidas' most iconic designs. Beyond using Facebook as its main relationship marketing hub, Adidas also wanted to build a network of ambassadors for Origins and reach specific audiences in an authentic voice. So what they did is they took advantage of Facebook's anonymous targeting capabilities to aim its advertising at people listed as Star Wars fans, science fiction fans, fashion, and Lady Gaga were the keywords that they used. These were the likes and interests that they thought would be interesting to bring people to this brand, to ignite a conversation around the Adidas Originals brand. And so by linking its products with compelling stories that delighted their fans, Adidas was able to catapult itself to one of the top 20 brands on the site. And the experience was an increase in their physical store traffic, and the direct result was that conversations consumers had with the brand on Facebook led to purchases. And that's a profound benefit. Next one I thought I'd like to talk to you about is Deutsche Telekom. Recently, you've probably seen this, it's quite a popular campaign at the moment. They're using great content to fuel conversations with their fans. Working with the ever-popular Katy Perry, Deutsche Telekom is running a competition to see which fan is talented enough to appear in her next video, Firework. The next one I think is interesting to talk about is a US brand, so forgive me for that. But Best Buy is a consumer electronics and marketing company. They let Facebook users solve the ultimate dilemma. On the site, you can ask your friends about buying stuff. So do I want the 46-inch plasma or do I want the 42? And you can have that conversation in the store, which is really exciting. And the principle behind the approach is very simple. In the world of information overload, we turn to trusted sources to make our decisions. More often than not, these sources are our friends. And when a brand offers a great product or a great experience, and one friend recommends that product to another friend, there's a linear increase in the brand's message. But when that same recommendation ripples through the social graph, the exposure increases exponentially in real time. And that is something that simply wasn't possible in the past, and it opens up completely new opportunities that we're just starting to comprehend. Ooh, there we go. This next campaign is something I think that is notable, not just because it's Pepsi, but I'm not sure if you follow but marketing in the US, but Pepsi decided to forego the Super Bowl, which is the daddy of all advertising events in America. And they decided this year that they would start a social responsibility campaign to reach out to the people that love their brand and ask them how they could use the money they donate to causes. What is the best way to do that? So they conduct these polls every month on the site, and it's gone to an extraordinary level. In fact, the campaign has been so successful that just last week they announced they're launching it in another 9 markets. So really powerful. So it's not just about marketing products, but it's also about important ways to communicate that your brand identity, what you care about as a brand, and what's important to you as a company. The next one I thought was quite interesting is, you guys all know on a navigation system there's that, electronic voice that drives you crazy, especially when you're lost and you can't find your way. What Nokia decided to do is they launched a program with their free mapping service that allowed you to use any of your friends on Facebook's voice to become the voice on your mapping service. So it was really quite cool, and it's called Nokia's Own Voice application, and it does just that. It lets you reach out to anyone you're connected to on Facebook and use their voice to guide you on your next trip. I've talked a little bit about location, and also I think that that's I talked about friends' recommendations. So I want to bring those two concepts together in this next example about Coca-Cola. Some of the most interesting thinking we're seeing today is happening at the intersection of digital and physical. For years, Coca-Cola has been holding these Coca-Cola villages across the world. One in particular in Israel did some very innovative things this summer that I thought I would share with you. Coca-Cola offered wristbands to thousands of teenagers who attended the Coca-Cola village. So they could update their Facebook status with a tap of a hand, bridging the gap between being online and being offline in what promises to be an interesting direction and view into the shape of things to come. So let's take a look at a short video.
There's one thing teenagers wait for when summer comes: Coca-Cola Village. The village hosts thousands of teenagers for 3 unforgettable days that integrate music, friends, and fun. This year, the village's site was hosted on Facebook to promote great interaction and broad exposure amongst teenagers. And still, we looked for a fresh way to create excitement. The solution? Bringing the virtual world of Facebook into the real world of the village. Every village guest received a wristband holding an RFID microchip that contained their Facebook username and password. On each village attraction, we attached an RFID microchip capable of collecting the user's data and sending it directly back to Facebook, creating a real-time sharing experience for the guests with their Facebook friends. Teenagers, full of excitement, used the wristband non-stop. In addition, the wristband was also used to auto-tag the teenagers in pictures that were uploaded to Facebook online. With more than 35,000 posts in each cycle, even though the village only hosts up to 650 teenagers, the mission was accomplished. The experience moved from the world of Facebook into the real world and returned to the virtual world in full capacity.
I fear my son's going to be old enough to go there in 2 years. It's really scary. Anyway, the next one is something Diesel's done, again, sort of bringing friends into the dressing room when you're trying on clothes. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to do it really quick because I think it's a great example of, it happened in Spain, so it's got a little bit of a Spanish flair to it, but it really indicates like the future of things to come. You can actually show someone when you walk out of a dressing room what an outfit looks like, get their reaction, and make a buying decision based on that reaction. And finally, the last example is Nike and their Right to the Future campaign. This one is, I think I heard it's actually been talked about here today. It's a profoundly moving campaign with the most extraordinary results around the World Cup. Now, Nike was not one of the World Cup sponsors, but they achieved extraordinary results with this campaign on television and especially on Facebook. So I'm going to talk to you really quickly about some of the figures there. Over the course of the campaign, the ads were seen 2.5 billion times. More than 3 million people like Nike football as a result and now have a lasting connection to the brand. People engaged with the ads 9.4 million times, and Nike's 3-minute Right to Future video was played 6.4 million times. All these actions drew more than 169 million organic impressions, and that drove almost 400,000 unique actions. Now, when you add that, we did we worked with Nielsen on some research and measurement, and in this case, the Nike Right the Future campaign, 38% of the people who saw the ad on Facebook remembered it, so that's incredible in terms of ad recall. And 52% associated the video with Nike and the Right the Future campaign. So that actually puts this campaign in the 98th percentile of the Nielsen statistics for any campaign. So it's really an absolutely fantastic result. So the common theme around all these examples I've just shown you is that the brands are all trying, each in their own way, to move beyond traditional campaigns. You know, campaigns are here today and gone tomorrow. So we're not simply thinking about launching longer campaigns or more creative campaigns, but a completely different approach to marketing itself. You know, one that treats marketing as a long-lasting relationship, not a series of events, and one that recognizes that a product is less important than the story about the product, and that the story is often best told by the customer. So we're at the dawn of a new era of personal expression, and this presents endless opportunities for marketing. It's an era in which it's easy for the marketing department to reach out to a consumer, but it's also easy for the consumer to reach out to the marketing department. It's an era so advanced that it simply can't be talked about in the ways we talked about things in the past. It's not about what we did before, it's about what we imagine in the future. And they say a revolution doesn't happen when society adopts new tools. It happens when society adopts new behaviors. And I believe we've reached that point in time. And we at Facebook would like nothing more than to work with you and to turn this potential into reality. Thank you very much. Scary monitor telling me I was out of time, so I kind of rushed the end, so apologies.
Well, this is the biggest problem we're having, Joanna. Hello, my name is Martin. Hi. Nice to see you. Thanks for your presentation. I think it was very enlightening, very good to see all these cases, which some of us have seen before. I've seen the diesel example, which I really like.
Yeah.
So, sorry for saying that, but we are kicking off with the last panel now.
Okay.
Swap into German now again.
Can I just take my computer?
Yeah, just take it off.
I'm going.
Don't
I'm going.
worry,
Nice to meet
don't
all of
worry,
you.
don't worry. I'll talk a bit about it. So, wir haben das letzte Panel jetzt dann des heutigen